The phone call came at 3 in the morning, a child's voice whispering, "We're still here," before the line went dead. The caller ID showed the Brennan house phone number, disconnected since 1987. Before we uncover what really happened that October morning, a quick whisper. This channel explores mysteries history tried to bury. If you're drawn to stories that challenge everything you think you know, consider subscribing. Detective Ashley Turner jolted awake in her apartment, the phone's harsh ring cutting through the silence. She fumbled for the device, squinting at the bright screen. 3:07 a.m. The number looked familiar, but that was impossible. The voice on the other end was small, desperate. A little girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old. Each word came through clearly, but the connection seemed distant, like the child was calling from another world entirely. "We're still here. Please come find us. The man won't let us leave." Turner sat up straighter, her detective instincts kicking through the fog of sleep. "Who is this? Where are you calling from?" But the line had already gone dead. Turner stared at the caller ID. She knew that number. It belonged to a house that had been demolished 15 years ago, a house where 4 children had vanished without a trace in 1987. She'd been a detective for 12 years, specializing in missing persons cases. She'd worked hundreds of files, found dozens of lost children, reunited countless families, but she'd never received a phone call from the dead. Turner padded to her kitchen and made coffee with shaking hands. Outside her window, the small Indiana town of Millbrook slept peacefully, unaware that the most notorious unsolved case in county history had just called for help. The Brennan children, Lucas, Hannah, Oliver, and 6-year-old Violet. Turner had memorized their names months ago when she'd pulled their file during a slow week. 4 siblings who vanished from their backyard on a Tuesday evening in October. Parents inside making dinner, windows open to catch the autumn breeze. Normal family, normal day, until the children simply ceased to exist. Turner had read every page of that file, the initial police report, the FBI analysis, the witness statements, the search and rescue logs, hundreds of pages documenting the most thorough investigation the county had ever conducted. And it had all led nowhere. The children hadn't run away. They hadn't been abducted by strangers. They hadn't fallen into the creek behind their house or gotten lost in the surrounding woods. They had been playing hide-and-seek in their own backyard one moment and gone the next. Turner tried calling the number back, straight to a recording. "The number you have dialed is not in service." She tried again, same message. By 6 a.m. she was dressed and in her patrol car, driving toward the address she knew by heart. 1527 Oak Street had been empty for years before the demolition. No one wanted to live in the house where 4 children had disappeared. The lot was overgrown with weeds and volunteer saplings. Only the concrete foundation remained, a gray rectangle slowly being reclaimed by nature. Turner parked at the curb and walked across the uneven ground, her boots crunching on fallen leaves. Standing where the Brennan family kitchen had once been, Turner tried to imagine that October evening 37 years ago, Ronald and Janet Brennan preparing dinner while their children played outside, the parents occasionally glancing through the window to check on their kids, seeing them laughing and running around the old oak tree in the backyard, until they didn't see them anymore. Turner's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "Detective Turner, you came. That's good. Check the basement foundation. 3rd concrete block from the northeast corner. What you find there will explain everything. I friend who remembers." Turner's heart began to race. She hadn't told anyone about the phone call, hadn't filed a report. She'd driven here on impulse, following a lead that shouldn't exist. She found the northeast corner of the foundation and counted 3 blocks. The concrete here looked newer than the rest, poured separately and sealed with a different material. Turner knelt down and ran her fingers along the edges. Hairline cracks outlined a perfect rectangle, as if this section had been designed to be removed. Turner called for backup and a crime scene unit. While she waited, she walked the perimeter of the property, looking for anything that might explain how someone could know she was here. How they could text her from an unknown number. How children who'd been missing for 37 years could call her in the middle of the night. The crime scene techs arrived within an hour, bringing ground-penetrating radar and excavation tools. Turner explained about the phone call, the text message, the suspicious concrete block. The lead technician, a woman named Kelly, who'd worked dozens of cold cases, listened without skepticism. "Strange things happen with old cases sometimes," Kelly said, setting up her equipment, "especially ones involving children. It's like the victims don't want to be forgotten." The ground-penetrating radar confirmed what Turner suspected. There was a void beneath the concrete block about 2 feet down. Something had been buried there. It took an hour to carefully remove the concrete. Beneath it was a waterproof container, the kind used by camping enthusiasts to keep supplies dry. Inside the container were 4 small backpacks, each one labeled with a child's name in faded marker. Turner's hands trembled as she opened Lucas's backpack. Inside were baseball cards, a pack of gum, a school assignment about dinosaurs, and a photo of the 4 siblings standing in front of their house. Everything matched the inventory from the original missing persons report. Hannah's backpack contained a diary with entries right up to October 14, 1987. The last entry read, "Tomorrow we're going to play the best game of hide-and-seek ever. Lucas found a new place to hide where no one will ever find us." Oliver's backpack held action figures, a handful of marbles, and a drawing he'd made of his family. In the drawing there were 6 figures instead of the usual 4 children and 2 parents. The extra figure was tall, wearing a dark coat, standing behind the family. Violet's backpack contained her stuffed rabbit, a juice box that hadn't been opened, and a child's necklace made of colorful beads. But at the bottom of each backpack was something that made Turner's blood freeze. 4 Polaroid photographs, each showing a different child sitting in what appeared to be a basement room. Concrete walls, bare light bulb, metal chair. The children looked exactly as they had in their school photos from 1987, same ages, same clothes, same expressions. But the photographs were dated. Black marker on white borders, October 15, 1987, the day after the children had disappeared. And beneath that date, written in red ink, was a second timestamp, October 15, 2024, tomorrow's date. Turner stared at the photos, trying to process what she was seeing. Either someone was playing an elaborate hoax, or 4 children who had been missing for 37 years were still alive, still the same ages, still being held captive somewhere. Her phone rang. Same unknown number. Detective Turner. It was the same child's voice from earlier. But now Turner could hear background sounds, concrete, metal, echoing spaces. "Thank you for finding our backpacks. We've been waiting so long for someone to look in the right place." "Where are you?" Turner whispered into the phone. "Who's with you?" "We can't say where we are. He listens to everything. But Detective Turner, you need to be very careful. The man who took us, he knows you found our things, and he's not happy." The line crackled with static. "Detective Turner, are you still there?" "I'm here. Tell me your name." "I'm Violet. I'm 6 years old. I've been 6 years old for a very long time. Detective Turner, do you have children?" Turner's throat tightened. "A daughter. She's 8. "Then you understand why we keep calling for help, even though we know it's dangerous. Because somewhere there are other children who need someone like you to find them before it's too late." The call ended. Turner looked down at the evidence spread across the top. 4 backpacks that had been buried for decades, containing items that matched a 37-year-old inventory exactly. 4 photographs showing children who should now be middle-aged adults, but who appeared unchanged by time. Kelly, the crime scene technician, was examining the Polaroids with a magnifying glass. "Detective, these photos are real. The paper stock, the chemical development, the aging patterns, they're consistent with pictures taken in 1987. "But the red ink date is fresh," Turner observed. "Very fresh. Probably written within the last 24 hours. Turner's radio crackled to life. "All units be advised. Multiple witnesses report seeing 4 children matching the Brennan description near the old water treatment plant on County Road 12. Children appeared to be looking for someone. Turner's heart began to race. The treatment plant had been abandoned since the early 1980s. Perfect place to hide something or someone. As she headed toward her patrol car, Turner's phone buzzed with one final text message. Detective Turner, before you go to the plant, you need to understand what you're really dealing with. This isn't just about 4 missing children. Check the original case file. Look for Detective Raymond Knox. He was the lead investigator. He was supposed to protect us. Ask yourself why he never searched his own property. And Detective Turner, be very careful. Some secrets have been buried for good reason. Turner drove straight to the county sheriff's office, her mind racing with questions that had no logical answers. Detective Raymond Knox had retired in 2003, but personnel records would tell her where to find him if he was still alive. She pulled into the parking lot as the morning shift was arriving. Sheriff Davis was unlocking the front door, coffee in hand, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Turner, you're here early. Thought you had the day off." She followed him inside, past the reception desk and into the bullpen. 3 other detectives were setting up for the day, but Turner needed privacy for this conversation. "Sheriff, I need to ask you about an old case, the Brennan children, 1987. Davis stopped walking. His coffee cup froze halfway to his mouth. "Why?" Turner pulled out her phone and showed him the photos from the backpacks. Davis set his coffee down and examined each image carefully. His face went white. "Where did you get these?" "Found them this morning, buried under the old Brennan house foundation. But that's not the strange part." She told him about the phone calls, the text messages, the dates written in red ink. Davis walked to his office and closed the door behind them. He pulled out a thick file from his locked cabinet and set it on the desk. "This is the original case file. Every report, every interview, every piece of evidence. I was a junior detective then, working under Knox, and I can tell you right now, those photos were never part of our investigation." Turner opened the file and began reading. The initial report was dated October 16, 1987. Parents Ronald and Janet Brennan reported their 4 children missing after they failed to come inside for dinner. Last seen playing hide-and-seek in the backyard around 5:30 p.m. But as Turner read deeper, inconsistencies began to emerge. Detective Knox's report stated that he'd arrived at the scene at 6:45 p.m., but the dispatch log showed the call coming in at 7:15. Knox claimed to have searched the basement, but there was no mention of the concrete block that Turner had found that morning. Most troubling of all, Knox's final report concluded that the children had likely run away, despite no evidence supporting that theory. 4 kids between the ages of 6 and 13 don't just decide to disappear together, especially not without taking any clothes, money, or food. "Sheriff, did Knox live near the Brennan house?" Davis flipped through his files. County Road 8, about 2 miles from the Brennan property. "Why?" "I need his address, current address." Davis hesitated. "Turner, Knox is 79 years old, lives in a nursing home now, early-stage dementia. What exactly are you thinking?" Before Turner could answer, her phone rang. Unknown number. "Detective Turner, it's Hannah. Please listen carefully. We don't have much time. The man is coming back soon, and he doesn't like it when we use the phone. We're in a house with blue shutters and a red mailbox. There's a big tree in the front yard with a rope swing. Can you find us?" The call ended. Turner looked at Davis. "We need to canvass every house in a 5-mile radius. Look for blue shutters, red mailbox, rope swing, and I need a warrant to search Knox's old property." Within an hour, Turner had assembled a search team, 6 patrol units, a K-9 unit, and a helicopter from the state police. They divided the area into quadrants and began a systematic search. The radio chatter was constant. Unit 7, checking Maple Street. Negative on the description. Unit 3, searching Pine Grove area. No matches found. Turner took the quadrant that included Knox's old address. As she drove down County Road 8, her heart began to race. There at 1247 County Road 8 was a white house with blue shutters, a red mailbox, and a massive oak tree with a rope swing hanging from its lowest branch. She parked across the street and called for backup. Through her binoculars, she could see movement in one of the upstairs windows. A small face pressed against the glass, then disappeared. Unit 12 to dispatch. I've got a possible match at 1247 County Road 8. Requesting immediate backup and EMS on standby. Turner's phone buzzed. Text message. Detective Turner, you found us. But be careful. The man has a gun, and he says if anyone tries to take us away again, he'll make sure we can't call for help anymore. There's a basement entrance around back. We're down there. Turner's blood ran cold. Knox wasn't just a corrupt detective who'd covered up evidence. He was the kidnapper. He'd taken 4 children and kept them for 37 years, somehow preventing them from aging, from being found, from escaping. But how was that possible? Backup arrived within minutes. SWAT team, negotiator, paramedics. The house was surrounded, but they needed to be careful. If the children really were inside, and if Knox was armed, this could turn into a hostage situation quickly. Turner's phone rang again. Lucas's voice this time, older than the others, more mature. Detective Turner, Lucas Brennan. I'm the oldest. I need to tell you something important. The man isn't Detective Knox. Knox died 3 years ago. We watched him die. But something else came after that. Something that looks like Knox but isn't him. It keeps us young so we can't escape, can't tell anyone what happened. It feeds on our fear, our loneliness, and Detective Turner, it knows you're here. The front door of the house opened. An elderly man stepped onto the porch, hands raised. He looked exactly like the Raymond Knox from the police department photo, but something was wrong with his eyes. They were too bright, too focused for someone with dementia. "Officers," he called out, "I'm unarmed, but you need to leave immediately. You don't understand what you're dealing with here." Turner grabbed her radio. "All units, hold your positions. Subject appears to be compliant, but exercise extreme caution." Knox walked slowly down the front steps, his hands still visible. When he reached the middle of the yard, he stopped and looked directly at Turner. "Detective Turner, you've been very persistent. The children told me you found their backpacks. Very clever of you, but you should have stayed away." Turner drew her weapon. "Where are the children, Knox?" Knox smiled, but it wasn't human. His teeth were too sharp, his mouth too wide. "They're exactly where they've always been, Detective. Waiting, calling, hoping someone like you would be foolish enough to come looking." Behind Knox, the house began to change. The walls shifted. The windows grew larger. The roof stretched upward like it was being pulled by invisible strings. The blue shutters turned black, and the red mailbox began to bleed actual blood onto the white post. Turner's radio crackled with panicked voices. "What the hell is happening to that house? Dispatch, we're seeing some kind of structural anomaly. Turner, get out of there now." But Turner couldn't move. She was transfixed by what she was seeing. The house wasn't just changing. It was revealing its true form. This wasn't a normal residence. It was something else entirely. A trap, a prison, a feeding ground. Knox turned back toward the house. "Children, come say hello to Detective Turner. She's worked so hard to find you." 4 small figures appeared in the doorway. Lucas, Hannah, Oliver, and Violet Brennan. They looked exactly as they had in the missing person photos from 1987. Same ages, same clothes, same frightened expressions. But their eyes were wrong. Too old, too knowing, too full of pain for children who should have only experienced 6 to 13 years of life. Hannah spoke first. "Detective Turner, thank you for trying to help us, but you need to run now. The house is hungry, and it hasn't had a new guest in a very long time." Turner raised her radio. "All units, evacuation protocol immediately. Get everyone back at least 500 yards from the structure." But as she turned to run back to her patrol car, she realized something that made her stop cold. Her car wasn't there anymore. None of the backup vehicles were there. The street was empty, like it had been abandoned for decades. Turner spun around. The SWAT team was gone. The helicopter had vanished. Even the radio chatter had stopped. She was alone with Knox and the 4 children who had been missing for 37 years. Knox began to laugh, a sound like grinding glass. "Did you really think it would be that easy, Detective? Did you think you could just call for backup and rescue them? This house exists outside your normal world, outside your normal time. The children have been calling for help for decades, but no one who answers ever leaves." Turner looked at her phone. No signal. She tried her radio. Static. She was trapped. But then Violet, the youngest, stepped forward. In her small hand was a cell phone, Turner's own phone, which should have been in Turner's pocket. Turner looked at Violet, trying to process what was happening. A 6-year-old girl holding her phone, talking with the wisdom of someone who'd lived far longer than her appearance suggested. "How did you get my phone?" Violet glanced nervously at Knox, who was watching them with those inhuman eyes. "Time works differently here, Detective Turner. We can move between moments, but only when he's not paying attention. The house lets us, sometimes when it wants to play games." Hannah stepped forward from the doorway. "Detective, listen carefully. This isn't the first time someone has come looking for us. Other police officers, FBI agents, private investigators, they all got trapped the same way you did." Oliver, the middle child, pointed toward the basement entrance around the side of the house. "They're down there now, in the waiting room. Some of them have been waiting 20 years or more." Turner felt sick. "How many?" Lucas, the oldest, counted on his fingers. 17 adults total. Detective Martinez was the first in 1991. Then Agent Williams from the FBI in 96. Detective Foster in 2002. They keep arriving every few years, but they never leave. Knox was getting impatient. He began walking toward them, his footsteps making no sound on the grass. "Children, you're being rude to our guest. Detective Turner came all this way to join our family. She should meet the others." But Violet held up Turner's phone. "Not yet. She needs to understand the rules first." Turner looked at the phone screen. It showed a text message thread, but not with any number she recognized. The conversation appeared to be between the 4 children and someone identified only as outside helper. The most recent message was from today. "Detective Turner has arrived. Is she the one who can break the pattern?" The response came immediately. "Only if she's willing to make the same choice we made. But first she has to see what happened to the others." Turner looked up at Violet. "Who is outside helper?" "Someone who got away," Hannah whispered, "before the house learned to lock the doors properly. He's been trying to help people find us for 15 years, but everyone who comes gets trapped." Knox was getting closer. Turner could see now that his face wasn't quite right. The skin looked stretched, artificial, like a mask that didn't fit properly. "Violet, what choice are you talking about?" The little girl took Turner's hand. "The same choice we made 37 years ago. Stay children forever so the house can feed on our fear and loneliness, or grow up and die like normal people. We chose to stay, Detective Turner. We chose to call for help, even though we knew anyone who answered would get trapped too." Turner stared at her. "Why?" "Because someday," Lucas said, "someone would be smart enough and brave enough to figure out how to free everyone. All of us. The children, the investigators, everyone who's been waiting." Knox had reached them now. Up close, Turner could see that his mouth moved wrong when he spoke, like the words were coming from somewhere else. "Detective Turner, welcome to your new home. The basement is quite comfortable once you get used to it. The other investigators will explain the routine." Turner backed away, but there was nowhere to go. The street behind her stretched into darkness. The neighboring houses had disappeared. Only Knox's house remained, growing larger and more twisted with each passing second. But then Violet squeezed her hand. "Detective Turner, do you have children?" The question caught Turner off guard. "A daughter. She's 8. "What's her name?" "Sophie." Violet smiled sadly. She's the same age I was when we disappeared. Does she know you're a police officer? Yes, she's proud of me. She wants to be a detective someday too. Then you understand, Hannah said, stepping closer. You understand why we keep calling for help, even though we know what happens, because somewhere out there Sophie is growing up, and someday children like Sophie might disappear too, and when they do, they'll need someone brave enough to answer when they call. Turner felt tears in her eyes. But if I'm trapped here too, I can't help anyone. Oliver shook his head. That's not true. Look at your phone again. Turner glanced down at the screen. The text thread had updated. Outside helper, Detective Turner, can you see this message? Turner's hands trembled as she typed back. Yes, who are you? Outside helper, Detective Raymond Knox, the real one. I died 3 years ago, but I've been trying to fix what that thing did using my identity. I'm the one who buried the backpacks where you'd find them. I'm the one who made sure the children could call you. Turner looked up at the Knox creature standing in front of her. It was grinning with too many teeth. That's impossible, she typed. Knox is standing right here. Outside helper. That's not Knox. That's something else. Something that feeds on trapped souls and stolen identities. It's been using my face for years, but I've been fighting it from the other side. Detective Turner, I need you to do something for me. What? Outside helper. Go to the basement. Find the 17 investigators who are trapped down there. Tell them Raymond Knox sent you to bring them home. But first you need to understand what you're really dealing with. The phone screen changed. Instead of text messages, Turner was looking at what appeared to be security camera footage. Black and white, grainy, but clear enough to see. The footage showed the interior of Knox's house. But from 37 years ago, a man who looked like Knox, the real Knox, was leading 4 children down basement stairs. But something was wrong with the scene. The children were moving strangely, like puppets on strings. The timestamp read, October 15th, 19. Turner watched in horror as the footage continued. Knox led the children to 4 separate rooms in the basement. Small rooms, like cells. He locked each child in their own space, then walked to a 5th room containing what looked like a control panel covered in switches and dials. Knox sat down at the panel and began adjusting the controls. On small monitors attached to the wall, Turner could see each of the 4 children in their individual cells. They were aging rapidly, then returning to their original ages, then aging again like someone was playing with time itself. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what happened next. As Knox operated the controls, his own reflection in the control room's mirror began to change. His face became less human, more angular. His eyes grew brighter. His smile stretched wider than any human mouth should be able to open. The thing wearing Knox's body looked directly at the security camera and waved. Turner looked up from the phone. The Knox creature was still standing in front of her, but now it was wearing the same impossible smile from the footage. Did you enjoy the show, Detective Turner? Turner's phone buzzed with another message. Outside helper, Detective Turner. What you just saw was the night I died. That creature killed me and took my body, my memories, my identity. It's been using my face to lure investigators here for decades, but I've been learning how to fight back from the other side. How? Outside helper, the same way the children have been calling you. Death isn't the end in this place. It's just a different kind of trap. But Detective Turner, there's something else you need to know. Something the children haven't told you yet. Turner looked at the 4 siblings. They were watching her with expressions of hope mixed with fear. What? The outside helper. This isn't the only house. There are others, dozens of them across the country, all controlled by creatures like this one, all trapping children and investigators. This thing isn't unique, Detective Turner. It's part of a network. Turner's blood went cold. How many children? Outside helper. Hundreds. Maybe thousands. And every time someone like you gets trapped, the network grows stronger. But Detective Turner, I think you might be different. I think you might be the one who can break the pattern. How? The Knox creature stepped closer. Enough chatting, detective. Time to join the others in the basement. But Violet squeezed Turner's hand again. Detective Turner, do you remember what I asked you about making a choice? Turner nodded. The choice isn't whether to stay or go. The choice is whether to fight or give up. And if you choose to fight, you won't be fighting alone. Turner looked around at the 4 children, at the twisted house, at the creature wearing a dead man's face. Then she looked back at her phone. Outside helper. Detective Turner, are you ready to learn how to destroy one of these houses? Because that's the only way any of us are getting out of here alive. Turner typed back, tell me what to do. But before the response could come, the Knox creature lunged forward with inhuman speed. Turner dove to the side, pulling Violet with her. The other 3 children scattered as Knox's claws, because they were definitely claws now, not fingers, scraped deep gouges in the ground where Turner had been standing. Foolish detective, Knox snarled, his voice no longer human. You could have joined them peacefully. Now you'll spend eternity in the punishment room. Turner looked at her phone. One final message from outside helper. The basement. Find the control room. Destroy the panel. Free everyone. But hurry, Detective Turner. It's almost midnight, and at midnight, the house locks down completely. No one gets out until the next feeding cycle. Turner checked her watch. 11:52 p.m. 8 minutes to save 17 investigators, 4 children, and herself. 8 minutes to destroy something that had been feeding on human souls for decades. Turner looked at Violet one more time. The little girl nodded. We'll distract him, Violet whispered. You get to the basement. As the 4 Brennan children began to run in different directions, drawing the creature's attention away from Turner, she sprinted toward the basement entrance around the back of the house. The door was unlocked. Turner descended into darkness, her phone's flashlight the only source of illumination. At the bottom of the stairs, she could hear voices, human voices, adults calling out in confusion and fear. Hello? Is someone there? Please, we need help. Turner followed the voices down a long hallway lined with metal doors. Behind each door, she could hear someone calling out. Detective Martinez, Agent Williams, Detective Foster, all the investigators who had come looking for the Brennan children over the years. All trapped, waiting for rescue that never came. Until now. At the end of the hallway was the control room from the security footage. The panel was still there, covered in switches and dials, with 4 monitors showing the empty basement cells where the children had been kept. Turner examined the controls. Some were labeled time flow, aging process, reality anchor, feeding cycle. She began flipping switches randomly, hoping to disrupt whatever was keeping everyone trapped. Immediately, alarms began blaring throughout the house. The lights flickered, and from upstairs, Turner could hear the Knox creature roaring in anger. Her phone buzzed. Outside helper. Detective Turner, you found it, but be careful. Destroying the control panel will free everyone, but it will also collapse the house. You'll have maybe 60 seconds to get everyone out. Turner looked at her watch. 11:57 p.m. 3 minutes until lockdown. She raised her gun and fired 3 shots into the control panel. Sparks flew. The monitors went dark. The alarms grew louder. From behind the metal doors, Turner could hear the locks clicking open. Everyone out, she shouted. The building is coming down. Follow my voice. One by one, the trapped investigators emerged from their cells. Detective Martinez, who had been missing for 33 years but looked exactly the same as the day he'd disappeared. Agent Williams, trapped for 28 years. Detective Foster, missing for 22 years. All of them preserved at the same age they'd been when they'd arrived, just like the children. Turner led them toward the stairs, but the Knox creature was waiting at the top. It had abandoned all pretense of human appearance now. 8 feet tall, claws like razors, eyes like burning coals. None of you are leaving, it hissed. This house is mine. These souls are mine. But then the 4 Brennan children appeared behind the creature. Lucas was holding something in his hands, a small device that looked like a remote control. "Detective Turner," he called down. "Catch." He threw the device down the stairs. Turner caught it and looked at it. A single red button labeled House Reset. Outside helper's voice came from her phone one more time. "Detective Turner, that button will restore the house to what it was before the creature arrived. It will send the entity back to wherever it came from. But anyone who pushes that button will be trapped here forever to maintain the barrier. It's the only way to make sure it never comes back." Turner stared at the device. Then she looked at the 17 investigators who were counting on her to get them out. Then she looked up the stairs at the 4 children who had been waiting 37 years for rescue. She made her choice. "Everyone get behind me," she ordered. "And when I tell you to run, you run and don't look back." Turner held up the device and looked at the Knox creature. "Hey, ugly, your feeding time is over." She pressed the red button. The house began to collapse, but not in the way Turner expected. Instead of falling down, it was falling backward through time. The twisted walls straightened. The creature's roars became human screams, then silence. The darkness was replaced by normal electric lighting. When the transformation was complete, Turner found herself standing in an ordinary basement with 17 confused investigators and 4 children who finally, after 37 years, looked like they were ready to go home. Her phone buzzed one final time. "Outside helper. Thank you, Detective Turner. The house is sealed now. The creature is gone. And best of all, you're all free to leave. But Detective, this was just one house. There are still others out there. Other children calling for help. Other investigators who will need rescue. Are you ready to find them?" Turner looked at Lucas, Hannah, Oliver, and Violet. They were smiling for the first time since she'd met them. Real smiles. The smiles of children who were finally going home. Then she looked at the 17 investigators who had been given their lives back. Finally, she thought about Sophie, her 8-year-old daughter, sleeping safely in her bed. Turner typed back, "Tell me where the next house is located." 3 days after the Knox house incident, Detective Ashley Turner sat at her kitchen table staring at the phone in her hands. The screen showed 17 missed calls from federal agents, but Turner couldn't bring herself to answer. She'd given her statement, turned over the evidence, watched as 4 children who'd been missing for 37 years were finally reunited with what remained of their family. But something felt unfinished. Lucas, Hannah, Oliver, and Violet had been placed in temporary housing while social services arranged long-term support. The other 17 investigators were undergoing medical evaluations and psychological debriefings. The FBI had opened a task force to investigate the network of similar locations across the country. Everything was proceeding according to proper protocols. And Turner knew it wasn't enough. Her phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. The caller ID showed her mother's number. "Ashley, sweetheart, I need to tell you something. There were people here yesterday asking questions about you and Sophie. They said they were federal investigators, but something felt wrong about them." Turner's blood ran cold. "Mom, what kind of questions?" "About your work schedule, where Sophie goes to school, when she stays with me overnight. I didn't tell them anything specific, but Ashley, their badges looked strange, too new, like they were made recently." Turner was already reaching for her car keys. "Mom, pack a bag for you and Sophie right now. Go to Aunt Linda's cabin by the lake. Don't tell anyone where you're going, and don't answer any more questions from anyone. I'll meet you there in 2 hours. "Ashley, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "I'll explain everything when I see you. Just go, now." Turner tried calling back 30 minutes later, but the phone went straight to voicemail. She called her aunt's cabin. No answer. She called Sophie's school. They said Sophie had been picked up early by her grandmother for a doctor's appointment. But Turner's mother hadn't mentioned any appointment. Turner drove to her mother's house, her hands gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. The driveway was empty. The front door was locked, but Turner had a spare key. Inside, the house looked normal at first glance, but Turner's detective instincts noticed the small details: a chair pushed slightly out of place, Sophie's favorite stuffed animal lying on the floor instead of on her bed, her mother's reading glasses sitting on the kitchen counter instead of in their usual spot by her chair. On the refrigerator was a note in her mother's handwriting. Ashley, taking Sophie for ice cream, back by 6, love Mom. But the handwriting was shaky, uncertain, not like her mother's usual confident script. Turner's phone buzzed. Text message from unknown number. Detective Turner, we have what matters most to you. If you want to see them again, come to 43 Oak Ridge Road. 1 hour. Come alone. Turner recognized the address immediately. The old Henderson place, abandoned for 15 years after the family who lived there reported strange sounds in the basement and children's voices calling their names at night. The police investigation had been inconclusive, but the Hendersons had moved away within a month, claiming their own children were having nightmares about voices asking them to come play. Turner called Lucas Brennan at his temporary housing facility. Detective Turner, we heard what happened. We're coming with you. Absolutely not. You've been through enough trauma. You need to focus on healing. Detective Turner, listen to me carefully. This is exactly what they did to us 37 years ago. They take someone you love and use them as bait to draw you into a trap designed specifically for you. If you go alone, you won't come back. Turner arrived at the Henderson house just as the afternoon sun began to sink behind the trees. The Victorian structure looked even more decrepit than she remembered from old case files: sagging roof, broken windows covered with rotting plywood, front porch tilted at an angle that defied physics. But there were lights flickering in the upper windows, and Turner could see shadows moving inside. Her phone rang. Sophie's voice, small and frightened. Mommy, I'm scared. The people here have police badges like you, but Grandma says they're not real police officers. They keep asking me questions about your job. When are you coming to get us? Turner's heart broke at the fear in her daughter's voice. I'm right outside, sweetheart. Are you hurt? Is Grandma okay? We're not hurt, but we're locked in a room upstairs, and I can't find the bathroom, and I'm hungry. Mommy, the man with the shiny badge says he knows you from work. He says you've been doing bad things, and that's why we have to stay here until you learn your lesson. But that's not true, is it? Turner felt rage building in her chest. Using an 8-year-old's trust and confusion as a weapon was beyond cruel. No, sweetheart. You haven't done anything wrong, and neither have I. These are bad people who are pretending to be good people, but I promise I'm going to get you and Grandma out of there safely. Mommy? The man is coming back up the stairs. He doesn't like it when we use the phone. I have to hide it now. The line went dead. Turner approached the house carefully, her service weapon drawn but concealed beneath her jacket. The front steps groaned under her weight, but the door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of decay and something else, something chemical and medicinal that made her stomach turn. Sophie? Mom? Turner called out softly. It's Ashley. I'm here. We're upstairs, her mother's voice called back, strained but strong. Second door on the right. But Ashley, be very careful. There's something terribly wrong with the people who brought us here. Turner climbed the stairs slowly, testing each step before putting her full weight on it. The old wood creaked and groaned, but held. At the top of the stairs, she could see light coming from beneath a partially opened door. She pushed the door open slowly. Inside, her mother and Sophie sat on a narrow bed, holding hands tightly. They looked unharmed but frightened. Sophie launched herself into Turner's arms the moment she saw her. Mommy, you came. I knew you would come. I was scared, but I knew you wouldn't leave us here. Turner held her daughter tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Of course I came. Are you okay? Did anyone hurt you? I'm not hurt, but I'm really scared. The man downstairs has a gun in his belt, and he keeps talking about you like he's angry with you, but I don't know why. He looks like a police officer, but he doesn't act like the nice officers who come to my school. Turner's mother stood up from the bed, moving stiffly. Ashley, the man claims to be Detective Raymond Knox. But Knox retired years ago, didn't he? This man looks far too young to be Knox. Turner felt ice form in her stomach. She knew Knox was dead. She'd seen him die, seen his body collapse when the entity possessing it was destroyed. But the network had other ways of creating deceptions.
Mom, we need to leave right now. Stay behind me and do exactly what I say.
But as they moved toward the door, heavy footsteps echoed on the stairs, deliberate, unhurried footsteps of someone who wasn't concerned about being quiet or subtle. "Detective Turner," a man's voice called up from below. "No need to rush off so quickly. We have so much to discuss about your recent activities." Turner positioned herself between her family and the doorway, weapon ready but still concealed. "Sophie, Grandma, get behind the bed and stay low. Don't come out until I tell you it's safe." The man who appeared in the doorway looked exactly like Detective Raymond Knox from old police department photographs, but Knox as he would have appeared 20 years ago, not as the elderly man he should be now if he were still alive. "Detective Turner, so good to finally meet you in person. I've heard remarkable things about your investigative skills, particularly regarding the Brennan case." Turner kept her weapon hidden but ready. "You're not Knox. Knox died when we destroyed your facility." The thing wearing Knox's face smiled with too much confidence. "Death is such a limited concept, don't you think? Especially for those of us who've learned to exist beyond normal human constraints." Detective Knox was useful. His identity, his reputation, his knowledge of police procedures, all very valuable assets for our operations. Turner could hear her mother whispering reassurances to Sophie behind the bed, and the sound of her daughter's quiet crying fueled her determination. "What do you want?" "Simply put, I want you to stop interfering with our network's activities. The children you freed from our Knox facility have caused significant operational disruptions. We've had to relocate resources, restructure communication protocols, invest considerable energy in damage control." Turner felt her anger building. Those weren't operational disruptions. Those were human beings you'd been torturing for decades. The Knox thing laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Detective Turner, you misunderstand the fundamental nature of our relationship with those subjects. We provided them with extended life, protection from the normal dangers of aging and death, stable housing and feeding. In exchange, they contributed to our energy requirements. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement." Mutually beneficial? They were children trapped in a basement. Knox's expression shifted to something inhuman. "They were components in a larger system, just as your daughter and mother will become components if you refuse to cooperate with our reasonable requests." Turner heard more footsteps on the stairs. At least 3 people climbing toward the second floor. "I'm prepared to offer you a deal," Knox continued. "Walk away from your investigation into our network. Stop assisting federal authorities. Stop encouraging other law enforcement agencies to look for our facilities, and your family members return to their normal lives unharmed." "And if I refuse?" Knox's face became something that no longer looked human. "Then they join our inventory permanently. Sophie is exactly the optimal age for long-term energy extraction. And your mother, well, we've never had the opportunity to study the temporal energy patterns of elderly subjects. It could provide valuable research data." Turner's finger tightened on her concealed weapon, but before she could draw it, her phone buzzed with a text message from a number she recognized, the real Detective Knox. "Detective Turner, look out the window behind you. Reinforcements have arrived." Turner risked a glance backward through the grimy window. In the backyard, she could see 4 small figures standing near the tree line. Lucas, Hannah, Oliver, and Violet Brennan. But they weren't alone. Behind them stood dozens of translucent figures, men and women in various police uniforms from different time periods. FBI agents, private investigators, all of them staring up at the house with expressions of grim determination. Turner's phone buzzed again. Every investigator who died fighting the network over the past 40 years. All of them free now. All of them ready to finish what they started. Keep the creature talking for 30 more seconds. Turner looked back at the Knox thing. "You made a critical error in your calculations." "Oh, and what was that?" "You assumed I came alone. You assumed I was operating without support. You assumed wrong." The house began to shake. Not an earthquake, but something far more focused and intentional. The walls vibrated, the floorboards trembled, and the air itself seemed to hum with electrical energy. Knox's face contorted with rage and something approaching fear. "What did you do? How did you—" "I didn't do anything, but the people you murdered over the decades, they've been waiting for this opportunity." The lights went out completely. In the darkness, Turner heard Knox scream, not with any human voice, but with a sound like tearing metal and shattering concrete. Emergency lighting flickered on, revealing that Knox was gone. Not dead, not collapsed, simply vanished as if he'd never been there. Turner grabbed Sophie and her mother. "We need to get out of this house immediately. The structure isn't stable." They ran down the stairs and out the front door as the building continued to shake apart behind them. In the front yard, the 4 Brennan siblings were waiting with expressions of relief and triumph. "Detective Turner," Violet called out, running toward them. "We did it. The spirits of all the investigators who died fighting the network. They combined their energy and collapsed this location permanently." Lucas nodded, looking both older and more at peace than Turner had ever seen him. "This house can never trap anyone again. The connection to the wider network has been severed completely." Turner hugged Sophie tighter, finally allowing herself to breathe normally. "Is it over? Is the entire network destroyed?" Hannah shook her head gently. "Not the whole network. There are still other locations in other states, but this regional hub is gone forever. And Detective Turner, we learned something crucial. Each time we destroy one of their facilities, the spirits of dead investigators from that area join our cause. We're building an army of allies." Turner looked around at the translucent figures still visible in the gathering darkness. Dozens of police officers, federal agents, and private investigators who had died trying to save children from the network. All of them now free to continue their mission. Oliver stepped forward, holding a waterproof evidence bag. "Detective Turner, when the house collapsed, we were able to recover something important from the basement control room. Documentation, names, addresses, operational details about network facilities across the entire country." Turner's phone buzzed with one final message from the real Detective Knox. "Detective Turner, thank you for giving all of us the chance to finish what we started decades ago. The war against this network isn't over, but today we won a decisive victory. And Detective Turner, tell Sophie her great-grandfather Harold says he's proud of how brave she was today. He's been watching over her." Turner looked at her daughter, who was staring wide-eyed at something just over Turner's shoulder. "Mommy, who's the nice man in the old police uniform? He looks like the pictures Grandma has of great-grandpa Harold. He's smiling at me." Turner turned around, but saw nothing except the empty street and the collapsed remains of what had once been the Henderson house. 2 weeks later, Turner sat in her office, reviewing case files with a renewed sense of purpose. The network was still active in other parts of the country, but they were no longer fighting alone. Every destroyed location freed more spirits to join their cause. Every rescued child was one less victim for the creatures to exploit. Her phone rang. Agent Wade from the FBI. "Detective Turner, we've received reports of missing children in Oregon that match the patterns we've been tracking. The local authorities are requesting assistance. Are you prepared to handle another operation like this one?" Turner looked at the framed photo on her desk. Sophie and her grandmother, safe at home, smiling at the camera after their ordeal. Then she looked at the stack of missing persons files on her desk, each one representing a family torn apart by the network's activities. "Agent Wade, I'll be on the next flight to Portland, but this time I won't be going alone. I'm bringing backup that the network won't expect." As Turner packed her investigative equipment, she could almost hear the whispered voices of dozens of fallen officers, all of them ready to continue the mission they'd begun years or even decades earlier. The network had made a fatal error when they threatened Sophie and her mother. They'd also awakened an army of the dead, and that army was just getting started. The war was far from over, but for the first time since this investigation began, Turner was confident they had the advantage. One house at a time. One child at a time. One family at a time. until every victim of the network was finally brought home and every facility was reduced to rubble. The dead would fight alongside the living until justice was served.